Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. 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 Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
All right, welcome everybody. Had been a bit since I'd streamed, so we figured we'll get back to it, not lose any good or bad habits, probably mostly bad habits. I couldn't remember where to find banners, which speaking of, I should probably take the starting soon one off. That's what happens when you don't stream in over a week. Had a few topics I wanted to quickly address, but in large part, probably open it up to listener questions and, if I'm being brutally honest, kill some time before the Washington and Oregon football game. But let me share my screen. Let's do entire screen. Go here. So this is kind of old news. I think I've streamed since this has come out. And I've definitely been on with other people, whether that's Doughboy or Spaces with Peeb and GVG. But the team had put out, kind of going into the season, we're almost halfway through now, what to look forward to going forward. And we'll kind of thumb through the early pieces of this and then maybe dive into the meat and potatoes at the bottom of it and add some commentary there. So kind of the first big bullet point is the calendar update. So those that have been around had known that right dirt horses had kind of been able to double dip for basically since we've been live, which is to say they could race in their major, or at least race qualifying races for their major, and breed all in the same window. They didn't have to make a decision where all the other archetypes had to make a decision. So this season, it's been switched to have a Rising Stars, which is juvenile only card on that first Saturday, and to push that right dirt to the following Thursday. Now, I think we've been through this. This is the week that we're in now. The Harbor Classic is tomorrow. I think mostly good. I think the Rising Stars was a great idea, and I think the execution on that was good. We got a lot of horses in there. I didn't notice any horses of ours that probably should have qualified and didn't. You're always gonna miss on a horse or two, but we're seeing the races be 2x subscriptions or whatever is possible to enter the races. So you're not going to get everything in. With the third time classic, again, that was yesterday. Congrats to Soulmates. Really weird that, another major, another Soulmates win, but no, he's absolutely crushing it. And we'll get into some of the gap data tools later to probably explain some reason as to why. Obviously, super sharp dude, big stable, great assets to start, absolutely crushing it. I think we did see a slight hiccup in the schedule change when it came to the third time championship, and that was that there was only 13 of the 20 possible horses in there. We have 0 right dirt pieces, literally 0. So it's hard for me to say, would I have fallen into the same trap, or even kind of what that qualifying cadence looked like for that. Maybe even the chat knows. But did the qualifying for that start on Thursday and the major was on Thursday, or did it start on kind of day one of the season? I honestly don't know. Harbor Classic is left turf. That is one of our 3 archetypes. But in the 3-year-old season, we don't have anything that's remotely at that level. A couple seasons we might get there. So I'm kind of out of touch, out of tune with qualifying for these. So how do we address this? How do we make sure that we get the outcomes we want? I think with the third time championship, and realistically probably for all the 4 majors, it might even been Crispy Bacon that had suggested have an auto registration if the horse is qualified, and have them auto register a minute or 5 minutes or an hour before registration closes for those, because there's certainly instances where like the registration for the third time championship is open, and it's open for a number of hours. I think normally like 48 hours. Well, maybe you want to get another race in and know you can still race in that third time championship. So I don't think auto registering when registration opens makes sense. But if there was like last minute or the last 5 minutes of the horses that have qualified, put them in and give them the option to opt in or opt out of that treatment, because there are cases, we're a good example of this as well, where last season's virtual Kentucky Derby, we sold one horse that qualified and chose to race shorter distances with another horse that definitely would have qualified, and raced the undercard that night as opposed to the Kentucky Derby. Now, we didn't actually qualify for the Derby, but think raced optimally for qualifying, we certainly would have been able to. So that would be a horse where I wouldn't want to be auto-registered for the major, but maybe that toggle that says auto-register me or don't auto-register me, and kind of put the onus on the stable owner at that point. But certainly, I mean, these are big-time assets. If you qualify for a major, I think the onus is on you a little bit to register for a race that you qualify in, or at least don't complain about it if you miss it. Quick attention to chat here. We got David, Bryce, Ice and Dice. RVA probably missed the royalty-free music. What I missed was the scoop on his big S Plus Colt sale. Turns out he just willy-nilly gave that to Bryce or Ryan. I thought we were going to discuss it on stream, but at these days, RVA is too rich to bother with streams in front of dozens of people. So maybe we'll get the story at some point, but I think he's at dinner right now, or probably should be at dinner and not looking at his phone. Tom from Blue Elder says qualifying was the first week, so numerous fillies qualified and retired. Yeah, that's fair, and I think that's a reasonable approach in that you still have to make that decision there. So do you want to run that, or do you want to retire and breed? For forever and a day, it's been super obvious that financially it's made the most sense to retire all fillies the second you're able to into breed. We'll get into that with this blog update, but I think there's now a decision point that you could convince me, depending on your circumstances, your priorities, that racing through the 3-year-old season is going to make sense for certain horses for sure. It wasn't the best yet. It's the same 2 or 3 songs, but I do really love the classical one. And while I signed up for whatever like the Twitch affiliate thing is, even if I get paid subscriptions or what have you, we have no way to donate to us, which I love. But even if this did get subscriptions, we'd still keep the royalty-free music. Like, we're not going to go back against our roots. Like, who cares if we've made it at this point? And then Bryce says, the problem with auto registration is when that runs, horses may be in other races and ineligible to be registered at that time. Yeah, so that's where I'm saying you couldn't have the auto registration the second the race opens for registration, because they could be registered for something else and it would air out a bunch of times. But I think if you had it auto register those that were available that opted into that kind of service a minute or two before race entry closes, then I think it would work. Now, maybe you still have some air out because they're registered in a different race, or if it's a filly, to Tom's point, maybe they've retired. But I think, and I don't know how air out works. I'm not a system developer or website designer. Like, if it stops the function altogether, yeah, then it's probably an issue. If it just doesn't allow those horses to register, well, I think they're telling you they don't want to register for it in the first place. So, see what else we got. So yeah, in the calendar update, all in all, I think that's very good. Kentucky Derby is still the last Saturday of the season as opposed to the first Saturday in May. All good. Updates on the schedule and real money. Again, numbers go up. Good number. Like the number. Claiming in particular was nice to see. I've shared with Bryce or others that even if this is good, I think there's still more that could be done, even for colts. But certainly trying to find a way to get fillies to be equitable in claimers, whether that's adding weight to colts so that they are kind of a subgrade difference, maybe an S minus filly races in the same race as an S colt or vice versa on the claimer, or update the claim amount to reflect kind of the price disparity between colts and fillies that exist at any given time. That one's always a little tricky because those dynamics change. I think we're now finally starting to see people acknowledge that at the very top end, it is, in my opinion, objectively better to have a colt as opposed to a filly. Um, Maiden races after the juvenile are gone. The time being spread out is pros and cons. I think there were some of us that um, liked that you could basically log in the morning, have a cup of coffee, register all your races, and sort of be done for the day. And I think the broader community probably would appreciate people like me doing that, because we're not waiting for V1s to pop up. We're not forcing V1s to be creative, which I think there are some going on in the community that are kind of farm and crown by creating additional races. So I do think that's another area of the schedule that probably needs to be addressed, is the creation of V1s, because it ends up being a crown suck. And it's really benefiting a real small subset of the community. So that would be another one that I would love addressed before too long. What's up, Lacey? Benchmark allowances. I think I've only ran one of these because we don't typically have our horses long enough to benefit from this. I think they're only in the 3-year-old and up seasons, and probably have to have some sort of race history to be able to even qualify for them. I think they're better than I thought. I played the other games, so I was super leery of any system that says if you somehow second a race, you are more advantageous in the next race you enter. I was very early to that strategy. The person that raced the horse Valkyrie initially, and my horse Gun for Hire, were I think the first two to fully abuse that strategy in the other game, which eventually they changed a little bit. But it seems like it's good. What I would like is just maybe help us understand a little bit of, in most of the allowances that we have, you're seeing, honestly, like in some cases, a 4-pound disparity between subgrades, whether that's A gets a 4-pound disparity over an A plus, or an S minus gets a 3 or 4 pound advantage against an S. And then for the most part, most of them are 2 pounds. Now there's some cases there's 1, but in these benchmarks, it's based on the fleet figure your horses run in that, I'll call it distance funnel, it seems like. And the weight disparity, instead of being 4 pounds or 2 pounds, and I get that those fleet figures are a little bit tighter, but you're only seeing like 1.5 pounds or 1.6, I guess is probably the real number. So to me, I'm a little bit confused as to how 1.6 pounds in these benchmark races can have the desired impact that it seemingly takes 4 pounds to have in a different allowance race. And maybe that is like completely what it ends up being, because the fleet figures are solving for that. If that's the case, if the fleet figures are solving for that, then I would say get rid of the legacy allowance races that we have now that have those 4-pound kind of cliffs in there. Lacey's got the one benchmark race I've run was with you, and I liked it. You probably because you won. I didn't win. I know that. I was running a filler race, but weights were like what, 0.3 pounds. Yeah, it depends. Like if the range in the benchmark was like 71 to 75 fleet figures, if you had like a composite or the trailing fleet figure of 71, you carried like 0 extra weight, or maybe like 0.3 pounds. But if you were kind of 73, I think it ended up being like you carried like a pound and a half, something like that. So she was 4th of 4. So you didn't win. I can't remember who won that one then. But what I would like to see considered here is, like I said, if we're able to effectively do weights in these benchmarks that are between, call it 0 pounds and 3 pounds, as opposed to between 10 pounds and 0 pounds, that seems a lot more realistic. It seems to be a lot more as real as it gets. So if we can somehow get that to work in a fashion for the juveniles, no, I understand there probably aren't in there right now for juveniles because you don't have the race history, you don't have the composite fleet figure, or maybe you just had one bad race, and then all of a sudden it's super advantageous for you to race these benchmark allowances instead. Those are things that I think need to be addressed. And like the one for sure loophole that I'm aware of, I don't know if anybody's done it. Like I said, I think I've only raced one of these races. We have two horses that are 3-year-old and up that would even be candidates for it, I think. But the one loophole would be injury. So if you got a horse injured, it runs like a 30 fleet figure or a 20 fleet figure. I don't even know. But that's going to pull your composite down. So obviously, right now it seems pretty unlikely that people would injure the horse on purpose. But what we are seeing with these benchmark allowances is they're super juicy on the crown standpoint because they're not getting a ton of entrants in them. And it's, again, I don't think it's because people don't want to race in them. They just don't seem to qualify for them. Or if they're really good horses, they're just going to the graded stakes as opposed to picking these allowances anyways. But certainly would seem if you could get a 20 fleet figure to bring your composite down in that distance funnel, yeah, you have to pay for the injury. Yeah, you have to wait for the rehab time. But if like you're a lock to win a race because you quote unquote tanked your horses, that's probably something that needs to have a fix or be addressed at some point. Doughboy says 1 at 11 of 12, but most of it 4 or 5. I agree with the 4 or 5. Do you know on the 11 of 12, is that like what benchmark range was it? My question is more to the point of, I think I consider 71s to 75s to be most of your really good S minuses or your S's, which, like I just said, typically just race graded stakes instead, or grade restricted if it's an S minus. So if the benchmark was 61 to 65, then it would make more sense to me that we're seeing higher volume there. This is the elevator music, Lacey. That's the entire point of the background music here. But I am very curious in that outcome because I think you could make a case that these races are better suited for fleet figures of the, let's say, 50 to 55 or 51 to 55, 56 to 60 or whatever that ends up being. We probably don't really need them for where you think horses would be racing graded stakes races in the first place. Is kind of the TLDR on that. I'm still eagerly awaiting Doughboy's clarification of which funnel or from a fleet figure standpoint that was. We mentioned photo finish goes worldwide on the clock. Like I said, I kind of did like, for me, my own hobbies or habits, it was nice to know that I had 12 hours of racing, and if I woke up 3 hours before the first race went off, then I could enter all my races, not miss anything. If I wanted to watch the races, I could. Now, obviously, if you're in Australia or if you're in Hungary or wherever you're at, that's not always the same opportunity afforded to them. So I get it. I will say it probably shifts behavior a little bit. Like now I find myself entering for a race once a race finishes, which again is super negative EV. Like you should probably just wait for V1s and V2s if you can. But I spend a lot more time entering races now than I did previously, which I don't. He says it was a 61 to 65 and a 56 to 60. Yeah, so that's my point. I think the ones that are 71 to 75 probably are always going to be farmable and always going to have small fields because horses that run 73 consistently or 74 consistently are racing in graded stakes. So just a tidbit there. Then the next big thing in the blog, and really what the blog was about, I'm very appreciative of we got rid of the enter 310 times and it just automatically shows up. That, or if you've done it once, maybe it's already there. But there's a lot of graphs in here. I have no issues with any of the graphs in here. I'm just going to actually even go forward past this one. We'll maybe come back to this one. This outlines what the options going forward are, but really the verbiage I think is what's important. Appreciate that, Bryce. Yeah, I think there shouldn't be a cheat code to find super important news. So I love that. So for those that are new-ish, realistically to this point, it's been really hard to fail in the game. You could be like Zook, who races a really good S and 175k claimer when it's a 2-year-old, and then it gets claimed, and you might fail a little bit that way. We'll call it user error. It's a bit of a skill game, so there are going to be some examples of that. But for the most part, if you're kind of diligent on where your horses should run, and are even back when Crown was like 5 cents, like there was a season or two there when it was like 3 cents, where you actually had to try to have some win equity in a race. But when it was like 5 cents or higher, it's been pretty plus EV to race. And now, like with the video game numbers we have on Crown right now, I mean, I've entered a horse today in like $150 entry fee race. The horse had run pretty good fleet figures, but it hadn't hit the board in like 8 tries. Like, so in the toughest race of its career, is it going to somehow hit the board or win? No. Like in a perfect world, you get third there, so you get your entry fee back, and then you get the crown. But the moral of the story is you get the crown. I don't love that it reduces yourself to crown farming, even if you're trying to win the race. Like I know Eddie Pocono Racing, he doesn't really have to try to win. He just actually wins them all. But if you give everybody a similar reward in a token that's not USDC benchmark, more or less, right? It fluctuates. People trade this coin. You actually are hurting the true top end of the horses, because there's really not that big a difference between having the horse that gets third and having the horse that wins. And the horse that wins gets 60% of the Derby or whatever that ends up being. So I'll switch screens here for a second to show you this. We maybe even discussed this a little bit. I know I've had this conversation with a lot of people, so forgive me if I have covered it before. And we won't use this season. We'll use last season. I think, 1, it's a full season, and 2, it probably showcases my argument a little bit better. But if you go to stable statistics on Pocono Racing, again, shout out to Eddie, probably has pound for pound the best stable in the game as far as what each horse in his stable is capable of, or what fair expectations for that would be. Then you have us, which aspires to quality but started with lesser fillies. I do think we'll get there eventually. We'll even do the include USDC value. Make sure these are the same size. They don't look to be currently. Oh, they are. Okay. So in season 8, which is last season, Eddie made $9,500 in Derby. We only made $4,200. So he's got us by basically double. But for simplicity of math, he beats us by like $5,300. But then with respect to Crown, he's only made $13,420. We'll make sure we use the 420 for the memes or for the vibes. Whereas we in net Crown, again, this is using today's price. This is like the one thing I wish we could figure out a way to program to say, like, pull the Crown value on the day it was awarded, as opposed to the full value at the time. And I'm not volunteering myself to program that. That sounds difficult. But the point is, Eddie's crushing it on the track. And we're no slouches, but if you look stable over stable, yes, he's making $5,300 more in Derby, but we're beating him by like a full 10 grand in Crown. That's probably not how the game should work. The game should reward people that are winning. And our season standings are about the same. We were 1.37 gross earnings. He was at 1.35. We entered double the amount of races is the difference. And our most common result of when we hit the board was winning, but he's winning at a much higher clip than we are. So where we benefited from, okay, we'll lose to Eddie, but we're probably getting second or we're probably getting third. That ended up being a lot more profitable than I'm going to basically win every race that I enter. So I'm all in favor of the team trying to find a way to incentivize the behavior they want to see, which is enter a race with the intention of at least hitting the board for most people. Ideally, enter a race trying to win. I think we're seeing higher volume stables than us enter 3 horses in every race and don't care whether or not they win. Like, probably one of the horses they have entered is probably supposed to win, but in large part, I still don't think that that's the behavior that we want. And that has trickle-down impacts. If you take that away, do horse prices come down? Does the middling horse price come down? Does the top go up? Like, there are a lot of considerations to it, but I just think figure out the behavior that you want stables to have and have that be kind of your North Star, even maybe more than as real as it gets. I'm going to circle back to chat. I'm not going to focus on the legitimate, like, I don't know, bot, troll, whatever that actually is. Like, does that mean we've made it if we've got them showing up in the Twitch chat now, though? David asked, had I noticed we got new track graphics? I thought I noticed something different in one of them today. I don't watch as many as I used to. I do think a function of that is that races are going off at like 2 a.m. my time. And if I catch a race live, I tend to watch it. If I catch a race that has already got the result, I, at best, like skip halfway through the race because I want to avoid the like super loud music, which maybe gets released in like the next season's patch notes because it is like deafeningly loud for the major races. So I at least skip past that, but most times I skip to like 4 furlongs left to go or 3 furlongs left to go, depending on how long the race is. But yeah, I did think we saw something different. Longer term, it would be lovely if we had multiple tracks. And I know, like, I wouldn't have been the person that would have asked for this. Like, if you asked me, even now, when I'm watching the race, I just told you I watched some of the races. I'm watching the 2D model of the race for the most part. Like, I want to see if my horse is catching the horse that it's alongside or falling back from the horse that it's alongside. So the graphics are great. More tracks would be great. But I'm still probably just, to watch the 2D model. But with more tracks, like, one thing that, and I never even, like, I'll call it publicly campaigned for this, because really probably didn't matter. And there was a chance it wouldn't have changed our behavior. And 2, it does benefit large stables more than anybody else. So it wasn't worth making a case for back then. And it is kind of irrelevant now. But I've always thought, so we've got the track staking. There's 5 tracks, 6 tracks that you can actually stake at. And the schedule is not in your control, which I know a lot of people are. I want to be able to control the schedule. I want to be able to offer promotions to stables. Like, long term, that would be great. That I would totally get on board with. Like, I know Tom is in the chat from Blue Elder. He's definitely suggested as much himself of how do we get people to race at my track as opposed to the other tracks. Now, that always lost a little bit of weight with me, which I should try to lose myself. But it loses a little bit of weight when the track are visually the same, even if the location and the name are different. So I had thought when the track was essentially the same, even again, location or name was different, it would have been a clever solution if, as a stable, you could decide where you were racing. So you could have one race that, of the 12 horses in the race, 4 could have been at one track, 4 could have been on a different track, 2 could have been on a different track. so on and so forth. Now I get that does not sound as real as it gets, but what it does is acknowledges that the tracks were the same and incentive to take your crown. Because if I know as absolute horsepower, 100% of my racing volume is going to the Fushu. I won't get permabanned from Twitch today, but I like to call it the other one. The Japanese track, if I knew 100% of my race volume and the race rate associated with my race entry was going to Fushu Raceway or whatever it's called, I'm way more incentivized to actually hold crown and stake crown, because that ends up being like a one-for-one playback of my racing volume. Yes, you can spread equally and get somewhat similar, but if my racing volume represents 1% or 2% of total race volume, everybody's benefiting from me racing more than I'm benefiting from me racing, other than the few people that have more racing volume. So I thought that was an interesting solution, but again, I think this is the first time I've ever shared it, even in the Discord itself. So food for thought. I don't think we'll ever get there, but I do think it's interesting. Yeah, I see I have 2 private chat messages here. My viewer count went up by not allowing you. But if you want to come back, I'll let you out. That's fine. You're the pro here. You're going to make Twitch partner soon, probably. Remember us when you're rich and famous. But I just vibe. All I want to do is cover some agenda items. And like I said, kill some time before the football game. Oh, he's back. He's back. He's back. What's up, boy?
You can't give high praises and then just leave me at the door. I at least let you up after 10 minutes. You just kept talking.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
No. But this does allow me to drink a little bit if you're up here too.
What did you to those allowances? Because I was trying to come up for those because I had everything ready, had my homework done. I pulled them up on screen. I was going to share the screen and say, look at this. So that way we can go through it together. But yeah, majority of them have been 4 or 5 horse fields. The ones that filled today were, I think, 61 to 65.
Okay.
Give me a second. And I feel like that's been a common point over the last couple of days, depending on what archetype. I don't mind. I don't mind these allowances. I'm tilted that there isn't any for 2-year-olds, and I understand maybe like the first 2 weeks of the season not having them, but like in the middle of the season, maybe let's have some. But yeah, they're definitely very farmable. I don't know if we're allowed to use that word on the stream, but it's not my stream, so I don't care. They're definitely farmable. I had fun in the one that I entered and finished second in and collected. I think they are kind of dope. I don't know how profitable you can be by gaming them. Like, I guess you could technically, this is don't take my advice on this. I guess you could technically run in like the 800 Derby entry ones to like beat your number up, and then run in the what the shit are they called? Shut up, cat. Hold on. I'm trying to figure out the name of these things. Benchmarks.
Yeah.
Like you could do that and like maybe you become profitable, but that's like if you gotta take I mean still, because even with Crown, like you're still coming out on top. So like I don't know if that doesn't sound like a fun game to me. I guess like you're just gonna waste like 2 days of racing to try and like spike on the third day. Like
no, and I completely agree with you, but there were people in the other game that didn't think losing on purpose was a profitable correct strategy.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because I was one of those people. You go to as soon as you get to the top of class 2, we come all the way back down to class 5. Those were the days. Hammer out the $20 class 5 races. That was the day back then. That was fun, but that's not this game though. That's like fucking Parcheesi. Like we're not playing Parcheesi, we're playing 3D chess. So like I just don't know if it ends up being a good strategy at the end of the day.
I think it is. Like I think it actually is. I'll spoil it for myself. and I will get to Bryce's comment. Hopefully, I don't ruin it. Is to your point, Doughboy, if you race the 800 Derby entry fee races, injuries are based upon the entry fee. So you would have a very cheap injury. You could have a horse that wasn't that good. Like, you're not doing this with your true killers. But if you race the $800 entry, then come back immediately, get your horse injured in the 800 Derby entry, then you race where your horse should, both distance and benchmark. Yes, you lost 1,600 in Derby. One, you got crowned for both of those.
Yeah, it's a wash.
Yes, so it's a wash, and then you can actually win the race that probably is actually farmable based on the number of entrants. So don't do as I say, do as I want you to do. Like, don't do that. Don't be a see you next Tuesday. But I do think it's a strategy that definitely can work.
I thought about it because, like, we talked about it when we first saw the benchmark, when the blog came out. Like, I'm sure someone out there is gonna attempt that strategy, and maybe it's, I don't know. Like, I don't know. The psychopath inside me wants to, like, get a cheap shitty B and, like, try it, but, like, I also don't want to. I don't know. It's like for science, kind of. But, like, I'm having fun racing in the $50 and $100 races, and I don't want to enter 800 Derby races. So someone else can do that. But, like, I feel like it's I don't want to say gameable, but I feel like it's something that can be done. But is it worth it? Like, that's the thing. Like, if you're washing if you're washing 2 days in a row to try and spike on the third day, like, that's 2 days of your time. Like, in the other game, before they implemented stamina, you could get back to home base and, depending on the race volume, you could get back to home base in, a couple hours, if you knew what you were doing. But
yeah, I raced one horse 92 times in a day and won 22 races. That was way back before, like, when the race filled, it ran, like, immediately.
That's a slot machine. Absolutely. That's a slot machine to me. Sometimes you lose, and then you win. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think it's a viable strategy here. Like, I mean, and if it is, it's good for a short time. And if that's something that you want to dedicate your short time to doing, then, listen, I don't hate the hustle. You do what you got to do, but I don't know. This doesn't seem fun. And I'm all about having fun.
Yeah. So I won't read to the audience, particularly when you're up on stage either, because it's not fair to them or you. I think most people in the audience are familiar with this post. I wasn't able to find it today, so I think we'll get it back to show up on the news section of the website. But the three options are roughly, option 2 is like almost sort of cold turkey. Like, we were going from what I believe is 4.2 is the number right now, I believe, per season, down to 1.2. So 3 million less crown per season. And keep in mind with this, yes, it's saying it can get its way out to season 36. But you have to consider the growing horse population within these two. Growing horse population means growing race count. More race count times entry fee means each race is vying for less crown at that point. So to go from a much lower, or go to a much lower starting total, dilute that by more horses, like, it could be yeah, Tom said it better than I could. That will have some hair on the Band-Aid. Now, certainly stables like Eddie, probably even us, would still be Derby positive. We would still make money and crown. But that forces some tough decisions for a lot of stables, and it does kind of basically mean you have to enter expecting to hit the board in that race. And if that's the meta that you have, is you have to expect to hit the board, that gets hard too, because if you know you can't hit the board, people stop racing the horses. Like, it has the reverse flywheel effect where it can stifle racing, which can stifle crown yield, which can stifle crown, which can further flywheel in the wrong direction here. So I guess my opinion never matters too much to at least the true top dogs on the team. But that one, even if I think I could still beat it, I don't think is probably the best of the three options. So then you're left with a true halving, which again, they even acknowledge here is that's pretty common in the crypto space. So people in crypto would understand it. But if the end result isn't that different from what 3 is, which is like shave a percent off each season, my TLDR is I'd probably just go to 3 because then you can communicate which percent you're shaving off in each of the seasons, smooth the curve. Like if you look at the graphs, you go back to like current plan, yes, you would eventually have fallen off a real cliff, even worse than the going to the 1.2. But if you're trying to like ease the downswing, the percent reduction seems to have the best graph to it. Now maybe that's because they made the graph that way. Tom says he's team 3. Your thoughts, Doughboy? I'll shut up.
I don't talk about this stuff on my stream. This is smart people stuff. This is what I come to you for. I don't listen. I'm telling you, dog. I am a Neanderthal, but I know how to play games. I don't know how all this stuff works. Like I just listen to you guys when you talk because for some reason I trust you. It was hard to say.
I mean, I think if you ask,
I'll go with option 3. There's smart people in the chat saying option 3, so I'll go with that one.
Yeah, I do think it's the easiest to be transparent on. Like halving makes sense, but then you have to pay attention to like when the halving is happening, and you can't just assume that everybody's paying attention at all times. And like I said, like let's get this back on the news if it's not. I see that the news ribbon is highlighted here, so maybe it is, but it would be better not just because I don't have access with my Discord to the Discord itself, but if you're trying to drive traffic and engagement to the site itself, let's make sure like all of the important news, including announcements and probably even minor announcements, show up somewhere on the site. Like make it so that a person shouldn't need to go to the Discord to stay up.
That I will agree with. If they can put my dumb name on the homepage, then they can put news alerts on the thing. It might be Mo tonight, but they have my race card on the side for Tuesdays.
Yeah. Oh, that's us, recent winners. You're right.
Upper.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
yeah.
But tonight they have Mo's on there, so they can do things. Let's do some things. Yeah, I'm all for not having to like hunt down updates and stuff like that. Especially for newer players. If we're gonna like see an influx, I don't know what the influx.
I never spend much time on the homepage.
Well, there's nothing really on the homepage like that, piques my interest. Like when I open the photo, well, I already have it pinned, so it's pinned to my stable all the time. So it's either my stable or races, marketplace, and breeding, and sometimes track when I remember to stake.
Yeah,
everyone's stake. Don't forget.
I really like. Yeah. Well, it's past. It was yesterday.
Well, yeah,
but I really, I really like this graph. I wish this was on your stable page. Like if you go to your stable, like there's room for that in the top left here.
Did that say 93 pregnant mares?
Yeah, we sold 2. We're trying to wean ourselves off.
Jesus.
That's a good segue. Before we get into what we think of studs, yeah, we have 93 pregnant mares. So shout out to Gap Data. Those guys are crushing it. Not that MJ's not. MJ's crushing it. I just think they each cover 2 distinctly different things in the ecosystem. And I personally am more in tune with kind of the global metrics of what are stables doing? What are fair prices for horses? And I think for those 2 things, Gap Data crushes that pretty effectively. So I'll hit refresh here. But Gap Data tweeted out today Power BI, they've shared this before, and then I think it kind of fell behind the scenes. I hope it doesn't fall behind the scenes again, because I think this one is really good, because this allows you to see, like, in one page what everybody else is doing. And I get if you're not at the true top end, maybe it matters less. But if you want to call me like an extractor, because we've sold 26, which is the second highest, like, you can. And then you could balance that with the total number bred for the season. Bought, we're at the bottom. We probably don't even show up. I don't know if this goes to 0 or not. We're only at like 1 or 2. But, and then you can sort by, who's got the most S pluses. What I think this does is it allows you to know who you should be talking to for what you're trying to accomplish. Like, if you want just sheer most horses and you want a horse, like OEB's got horses, Soulmates has got horses, Breaking Bad's got horses. They're putting out basically more than anybody. We would be just ahead of Breaking Bad on the full count. And this doesn't do fillies versus colts, particularly by grade or by sold. I can assure you, for the people that want to call us an extractor, one, you're probably right at this point. Two, most of the sold are colts, and I do think that this must include horses lost via claimers, because otherwise I don't think our number would be that high. That to me, that is a sale, but it's also a racing strategy.
Yeah,
so if you're, it doesn't count
that, like in your ledger, on your stable statistics. I noticed that thing.
For the sales. So if I go to my stats,
like, it doesn't factor it in, which I don't know. Maybe it gets like put on there like as something else. I don't know. I guess it's a sale technically. Like,
yeah, I feel like if I claimed a horse. If I claimed a horse, and you're right, it doesn't, because we claimed Zooks this season, right? This was season 9.
Well, half mine. Put some respect on my name, even though I didn't enter the horse, and I told him he's an idiot for doing it. But you can't fight with kids. You gotta let kids have their way sometime,
So you're right. And close circuit to Bryce in the chat. It would be nice if horse sale expenses showed horses that you had claimed, and gross horse sales included horses that you had claimed from you.
Because it's a stat, yeah. I mean, I like it. I'd like to see it.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, that's good. No, but like, if I go back to this one again, this is for November, so maybe they'll just put it out once a month. I see some like crazy crap that I didn't even know was possible. Like, shout out to VT Hokies. I was kind of making fun of him in the exec chat the other day, because he was talking about how he finally had the success to be able to buy 20 PFPs, and I said, well, that's the most success the VT Hokies have ever had. But yeah, he's putting out 56 foals. I would have never guessed. I would have put him at like 13. So if you're looking for horses and you want to prey upon the people that probably can pay the least amount of attention per horse, sort by this, basically, because I can promise you I don't know everything about our 93 foals we're going to have. If you watch the reveal stream, I don't even know what archetype half of the horses are in, and I have a naming convention.
Also, the easier target to buy horses, yeah, but like stables like Big Brain, who it's like multiple stables, that's one that should show up at the top. But like, even from a claiming strategy, I always look to see if there's any like top 10 stables dropping stuff in. Like, I've claimed one off of Big Brain for 60, and then it got claimed off me like 4 races later for 90. So like, you can sometimes find that value, because like, you guys don't, like, you're a giant stable, Stens. How much time do you spend on A pluses?
I mean, in what context? Racing,
like, how much do you prioritize entering your A pluses, or like when you go do sales, are the A pluses first to move?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to flood the market on anything. Like, I do like that we kind of have the ritual of like Fool's Day. We're going to give you like 12 options to choose from immediately. And realistically, that number goes up. We have more horses. We're going to have more to sell. So I kind of like that. But for the most part, if I put 10 A+ colts out there and 2 archetypes, like I'm doing myself a disservice at that point. So I'm trying to find like a very narrow window that is successful for everybody.
It's one of the things that we talked about in voice chat. It's like at some point y'all are gonna have too many horses to even pay attention to. And obviously Big Brain has how many different stables, you know, they're in every archetype. So like I feel like at a certain point you're just gonna start hammering ape. Like again, we talked about it before, like claiming races essentially become a live marketplace. Like instead of listing on the marketplace for X, you put it where you think it's worth, and then someone takes it. And if they don't, you go a little less, someone takes it. You know, you just keep, you know, until it's gone. Like if it's this half decent horse, but I think targeting the larger stables for buys, like myself, I came to you this week for a horse. I asked, you know, Mr. B. I bought a couple horses. I bought a couple horses off of Mr. B, who is, you know, one of the bigger stables, just breeding machine. Like, and I've had success. You know, they're not gonna. In my experience, when you go to the top stables, you're very rarely gonna get a dud as a racer if you ask for what, you know. It's not even asking. It's just do a little research before you go there. If you target some horses, chances are, like, if you ask for about 5 horses, 2 of them are probably for sale most of the time. And if not, you know, the number can be met. But I have been going like close to the top when I've been looking at horses. I haven't been going to like the middle stables or even like stables I've never heard of. That's just me. Because I feel like I'm gonna get an honest sale for the most part. I'm not gonna get the this horse has 4 offspring and its sister from his 3rd cousin is like a champion, blah blah blah. Like I don't need the spiel. Like, is this horse for sale? Yes. Does this horse have legs to run? It's gonna be more of a breeder. Okay, that's fine. I can accept that. Like, it is what it is. But yeah, I think going up to the top for product, we'll say, is probably like the best choice at this point. Like everything's established. We're at season 9. Y'all know pretty much what you have. So like if someone comes and you're like, I have a $75K budget, I want a solid racer, and you know, maybe you can pull one out of your hat. Or if someone comes to you and says, yo, I'll give you this for that, that's pretty solid. But like you said, you know, you gotta do the work. If someone comes to you, make sure you do the fucking work. Like it was mentioned before, like if it's not listed on the marketplace, there's probably a reason for that. So if you're asking me about it, at least do some homework about it. Like, don't just ask a question and then, you know, when I tell you X, like you don't have anything to say because you didn't do your homework. Like, look at gap data. you can sort and you can look at sales by whatever weeks and days and whatnot, and you can separate by letter. And wow, you're so rich showing your money like that. But yeah, like it's you learn a lot from the top stables, and gap data does really help with that. Like, some of their stuff is very good, like, you know, what you just showed, and then, you know, some of the other stuff is very useful, like the market. What's it called? The market.
I'm going to show it, and I'm going to show people how to use it. I never get on a soapbox, like, ever, but I'm going to get on a soapbox here in about 10 seconds.
I don't even know.
So,
got some
well, I was just sending the gap data some money, but so if you go to gap data, and one, I'll pause here. Shout out to PJJ Purple Jesus Juice. You put me in a weird spot, PJJ, because you've got like world-renowned streamer in Doughboy, and you chose to give me your Prime subscription for Twitch Prime. So I'm appreciative, but we could have done that like before or after Doughboy, so it doesn't have to be awkward for like the next 20 minutes. But
that person literally has no idea what they just got themselves into.
He knows.
I hope so.
He hasn't gotten himself into right turf firm as much as I'd like, but yeah,
well,
he's one
of the subs
stable
already.
RTS.
What a fucking person.
Yeah, exactly. That person, like, I'm a nobody. Oh man. No, he's got one of the best RTS stables for sure.
I've seen him floating around.
Yeah. So if you go to Gap Data, again, you click copy, you can donate from your Salami wallet. Donate what you can afford. We can afford probably more than we donated there. We'll do more, hopefully monthly or whatever it ends up being. But on the drop down on the left side, you expand market sales, and then you go to market sales charts. Bookmark this. I don't even have a bookmark. That's actually super weird. And Power BI takes a second to load. But if you come to me about a horse that's unlisted, I'll probably do the work and I'll just be mad about it myself. And I won't openly hold it against you, but I'll be super annoyed about it, which might implicitly hold it against you because all the information is here. So this is all sales that have happened since July 5th. Now, I do think there are a few things that people need to consider when they use this. And that might be the first one is like, are prices frothy right now? Probably. They probably are. And especially if we're going to reduce the crown stimmy one way or another in the next season, the season or the prices that we're paying in October and November probably aren't the prices we should be paying in December. Not financial advice. I would think prices probably come down a little bit. Will they? I don't know. I've thought prices would come down several times over by now. But anything in the bottom section here is filterable, and anything in the top is the information that you're actually looking for. So if someone comes to me about a horse, what is important to me is the time frame. So in this case, I'm putting in the month of November. The total stars, I use plus or minus. So Doughboy came to me, was it a six preference LTF? We could probably find the horse. So I do plus or minus a half a star on either side. So if he asks me about a 6 preference LDF filly, I'm going to put 5.5 and I'm going to put 6.5. And then like maybe even more important than stars is the sale age, not the age the horse is now. So he asked me about a 1-year-old filly. That is a valuation difference between a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a 0-year-old. Just no different than it would be if you were asking me about a 4-year-old that's retired. It can't race anymore. That plays into its value. And he'd asked about an A+. That is another uber important factor, and I wouldn't include other grades there. So this is like the bare minimum of what I would hope people would do when they're asking about a horse. Do it for yourself. Don't necessarily just do it for me. But now I've got 1-year-old horses. We'll put filly on there. Again, that would be another key factor. That have sold in the month of November that are plus or minus a half total preference star in this selling at the same exact age. So you could, in theory, have a horse from the prior season because it happened in November in this population. So you could cross seasons, but you're not crossing months. And I think that's a good way to do it. And then if you want to do archetypes, you can. I don't necessarily find that it's necessary. Now, Right Dirt Firm probably still has the largest number of horses, probably always will. Right Dirt Soft might have the least. Left Turf Soft or Left Turf Firm would be pretty low on the total population as well, I think. So if you really felt strongly that because there's so many Right Dirt Firm horses and competition is so tight at Right Dirt Firm, that if I'm looking at valuations of horses, I want to put Right Dirt Firm at a slight discount. So if I'm asking someone about a Right Dirt Firm horse, I can just truly compare against its cohort. There are other ways to kind of include or exclude populations. If you say that Right Dirt Firm is basically the only thing you don't want to include, now, there's not a way to do that currently, but typically you could say like, okay, if I want to exclude Right Dirt Firm from my population, give me like just soft horses, which would exclude Right Dirt Firm, which is the most common, Left Dirt Firm, which is probably the second most common, right turf firm, which is pretty well represented as well, or vice versa. You could take off dirt, which only leaves turf. So you can slice this. Now, obviously, you want a population of, I would say, like, hopefully you've got 10 horses that you can look at. But when we do this, we can see that on a sale age of 1 in the month of November for fillies, grade A plus or minus a half a star. This is the population, and the link to the horse on PFL's website is right here. So you can open these and say, if I sold All for Naught to Doughboy, how does that horse compare and contrast to Leotardo that Pocono sold to Ace? He sold that horse on November 12th. I sold ours on November 30th.
That's the reason.
That's close enough. That's probably within the same exact seed, the same archetype. That is a market comparable. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I saw that one.
When I was
at work. I saw that one pop up on a sales thing, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I didn't realize Eddie had A+ fillies at LDF for 150, and I was gonna message him back and be like, "Yo, do you have any more of these?" But I didn't want. I think that one had 1 of 1 in it, and I didn't want 1 of 1. I wanted to try and keep like a pure line, and I actually did a lot of hunting. I looked there yesterday like 4 or 5 times.
Because I'm looking at the same thing too that you just mentioned, is how many 1 of 1s are included in it, where maybe the preferences are actually
also
kind of cascading from, because yes, they have the same. Yeah. Well, now because the sale date is the sale age, so this was a 1-year-old when it sold.
All right, then he sold another one.
Yeah, not the best.
I think maybe that was it.
Not the best record. But if you want like my true like scientific opinion on the horses, I would rather have the horse that has 2-star, 2-star, 2-star than that has 3 left or right, because left or right is the easiest one to get back if you give it away. Once you're down to like 1-star soft, it's really, really hard to get back to even call it 2-star soft. So that this already has.
It gives you the flexibility in breeding. Like that's True. One of the things I was talking about on Tuesday. Like the last 2 mares that I got for mine and Tish's stable have been LD 0 preference firm, RT 0 preference soft. So like I feel like with those, and it's like 3, 2.5 on each of them. So like they're locked into their 2, but there's flexibility for soft and firm. And if you're in right turf or right dirt, like you get Mundo's an option, you get Doc, you get Nightcrawler, right? No, Night Saturn. There is a Nightcrawler. But like depending on what archetype you're in, it gives you that flexibility to swing. Like I mean, it all depends what you're looking for in breeding. Obviously, y'all have done more breeding than I have, and my sample size is much smaller, but my targets have been pretty consistent with the mares that I bred. But I personally don't mind the 1-star, honestly, up to 1.5. But if I want a pure fast or firm rather, then it's a different story. But even still, you can take that 1-star and go to a 3-star firm and likely not lose anything in your other 2 press because you're so high. Methinks. Yeah. But it's the law of averages, I guess.
So yeah, going back to, I don't know if it'll keep my filters or not. If it doesn't, we'll just move away from it. But to your point, Leotardo has 1 of 1. It also has, so again, just looking at the screen, rarity 85 on the sire side for the mare itself. So the mare's sire is rarity 85. I believe that is the same one that made Shawnee Bear, which means that even if this is not a 1 of 1, it is one that has been very commonly used. So Doughboy came to me and offered 150 for All for Naught. I saw a market comparable of 150 and basically told him, yes. I didn't do it because he's a friend of mine. I didn't do it because he deserves like some sort of streamer discount. He came to me with a number that has a real market comp to it. And whether or not I have all for naught in my stable is not all for naught. It is more or less irrelevant in that case. So we're more likely to sell you something if you've done the work. Now, this is probably a bad deal for us because
No, it's great.
some of these offspring have been pretty good. Apollo Zero qualified for the Kentucky Derby this past season. Was sold
You
for
sold that
like
one, didn't you?
200 plus K. So I had kind of mentally made a note of I should probably keep foals from Old Trafford, but didn't listen to my own advice there. So here were you.
That's the strategy, and like being in close quarters with you is knowing your beer schedule. So I just got you at the right time. That's all. It's all about timing. That's all this game is about timing. I made it at the right time where Sten's is like, you know what? I'm feeling a little loose. I'll help my man's doughboy out a little bit. He's getting started. So I appreciate that. But
as much as you think I'd love conflict, I really don't. And I hate sales and I hate negotiating from the seller side. Like if I'm buying something, sure, and then it's kind of fun at that point. But
I feel like from the seller side, it's easier. This is the number. Do you accept? Yes or no? No? Okay, have fun.
But
that's the fun part to me.
But I don't want people to know that I'm gonna see you next Tuesday. Like even if they heard it through the grapevine.
Listen.
I mean, it's easier to try to. I just want to like we sold a couple pregnant mares the other night, like 3:00 in the morning. Get DMs like, "Hey, we'll do what you said for numbers," because I did tell them like these are the numbers. Then you got to do it, and it's like I didn't really want to sell those horses. So
it's like I mean I've been on the end of it. Like we got lucky with Rooney. I listed that horse for an incredible number that I didn't think anybody was going to pay, but 360 win obviously doesn't care. But like even in the Tish stable, like I've had people reach out to me and offer me like 75 to 90K less than my listed number. My response was, I'm trying to get this. If you can't meet that, thank you for your inquiry. Like I'm not here to make small talk about business. Like, and unfortunately, that's another side of this that a lot of people don't see, and not a lot of people like to talk about it because it'll make them seem like a bad person. But this is business, and it's you come to me and ask me, I tell you. At that point, it's yes or no. It's not, what about? Well, what about? Your dog has to go to the vet. That's your problem, not mine. Like, you're asking me about this. Like, your car is a flat. Yes or no for this. Like, cutting deals is fine, but don't come to someone's doorstep and immediately like, oh, X, Y, and Z, can I get a deal? No, just this is what I want. Will you accept this offer? No. What's your counter? I can't do that. All right, well, have a good day. Thanks for, inquiring. Come back when you have money. Say that, but I just feel like a lot of people don't know how to approach a situation like that. Like they think they're the used car salesman at some point, Like they're gonna spin you some yarn that you've never seen.
Yeah. I just like people giving me the information, like what we just walked through in the Power BI. Like I normally screenshot, so you can't you can't copy this to my knowledge. Maybe I'm just that bad with Power BI, but I can't copy paste this for someone. So I'll just grab the snipping tool.
Just get the snipping tool out.
Yeah, so you just grab this so they know it came from Gap data. They can see all the parameters that I've basically filtered for. They can reperform it to make sure it's right. It's a lot easier to get a response from me on whether or not I'll sell something if you basically make it so that I'm forced to a decision about a fair price and a fair offer. Normally the answer is going to be yes at that point. Then, like some of our real top end stuff, maybe not, just because why are we selling our best assets? We need less horses. We need better horses, but less horses. Like we shouldn't sell our best stuff. BJJ, you said you're looking for 2-year-old colts, but you didn't claim this one, which is a brother of a major winner. I just got impatient and raced it at 125K. Actually, not the great race record, but basically just beat Diana Mercury, which is a combination of Mercury, which was that sire of Juniper. Juniper infused won the major. Diana, yeah, you would think that this horse is good, pulls like crazy good odds, and then must have like a peak age of 6.9 out of 9, because all the Diana offspring have been more or less awful. We'll look to continue that trend on the next Fool's Day. But you had another question in chat. What do you think of weights? Do you like them or want them gone? Well, I think to try to make a race of dissimilar assets, you have to have something to balance it, right? So like earlier in the stream, I don't know if you were here for all of it or not, I had suggested it seems curious that we have weights in these benchmark allowances that apply, call it 0 to 3 pounds on any horse that enters the race. Now, if you're below the fleet figure, you carry nothing. If you're above, you carry the maximum, which I think is like 3. But then you have other races that apply up to like 10 pounds of weight to horses. So how is it that we can have a balanced race that only applies 3 pounds and yet have a balanced race that also applies 10 pounds? So I would like to get rid of that inconsistency. Bryce is saying 0 to 2 pounds. That's what I thought it was, but the fractional weight in there is throwing me off.
Fractional weight is butt cheeks.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's fine. I just have like one or the other. If you want to do
Round
the
up
0
or
to
round
10,
down, like we don't need. There are no fraction. Like when you weigh in for your boxing bout, you have to make 185, not 184.79. You know what I mean? Like just make it a whole number, I think. But I don't know. I because like I ran in that benchmark and I was carrying 1.2 pounds. I'm like, why isn't this just 1? Like what is 2/10?
Yeah. But yeah,
I think they just
pick
need
one
to
or the
pick
other.
all.
Do the 0 to 10 or do the 0 to 2. Like if we can effectively do, because initially when we asked about weights applied in allowances and said like, well, 10 pounds is an awful lot. Like you go to Canterbury Park, like the most a horse is ever carrying is what, like 2-3 pounds basically. So 10 is like a death sentence in real horse racing. And we were told at the time they couldn't do fractional weights. So now they can do fractional weights. So I would say like go to one or the other. Like most people are used to the 0 to 10. So maybe that's the easier answer. Otherwise, go to the 0 to 2.
If they still had the stewards thing, like the race stewards or whatever, I would be banging the table. This is a horse racing game and it's already built. Just take what the horse racing people IRL do and bring it over. Like at this point, 3, 4, 5-year-olds are running against each other. 3-year-olds should be carrying less weight than 4 and 5-year-olds in most races, and it's still a level playing field. Like that, I think they can get it. I think they can do it. Like it's just take from IRL. That's it. Like it's very simple in IRL. Like they even have the weights figured out for when the fillies run against the boys. Like just take it, import it over it, and not this. Yeah, like 7, 10, 10, 7, 5, 1.
Yeah.
So A pluses, or I guess it depends on what you're in, but A pluses get hosed in those races. Is it the allowances that do that one? But also
there's a few. Yeah,
in the handicaps. In the handicaps, like I think 15 pounds is the highest I've seen. 13 if you have an S minus. 13 pounds is kind of ludicrous. So I think the weights on these things are fine. I just think they need tweaked. That's it. Just not like complete. I'm not gonna say complete randomness, but 10, 7, 5, 1 is kind of random.
Yeah. To JJ's point, yeah, my honest opinion is I wish we had 0 races with weights in them, and you let market factors determine which race entered in, or which horse entered into which race, which i.e. is claimers. Like if the entire population of allowances we had became claimers, one, that would benefit us. That is a biased statement. Like we definitely would benefit from that. But 2, then you actually do have horses that are of the same caliber because they are of the same value racing against one another. Like that would be perfect. Now, do I think we'll get there? No, at least not in the short term. But yeah, if you want my honest opinion about how I feel about weights, I would love to not have to run in them. But if you're trying to get all of your horses races and you have as many horses as we do, we don't stoop to the handicaps. I don't think I've run a handicap in like 7 seasons, but or whatever. Probably run like 2 since we've been live. But I do have to
have A's and A minuses. So
yeah. Well, I mean, we have to run in allowances to get some volume. So Lacey says she prefers restricted stakes. Yeah. And then you have to pray to the weather gods you get the right race that day too. So
well, it's that too. It's like if your horse doesn't have legs in a restricted stake, depending on its letter grade, I've noticed like most of the time it's not going to do well in allowances, and the only place to go from there is claiming races. So you just have to find where you think where you're comfortable losing it if someone decides to take it.
Right.
But I'm with Purple Juice on that. Like I actively dodge allowance races just so I don't have to deal with that like weight handicap. I preach about it on stream all the time. I enter races where I have the advantage. Like if I'm getting points or if I'm getting, the weight advantage, I'll go in there. Like they have the S- allowances, S-, S pluses or whatever. Most of the time they're all S minuses. So it's essentially just an S- restricted stakes. Occasionally you run into a couple S or, the A plus or 2 that are in there, but it's race selection is like a big part of it. But yeah, I also dodge the weight races. I try not to. Like I said, the benchmark race is like the closest I've gotten.
Yeah. Again, open to any and all listener questions. We are 45 minutes from the football game. I won't get us to the football game because I want to watch the football game.
Pick the winner in that race I sent you, and I'm leaving afterwards. I have to go get my pizza. It's at the door.
Private chat or where was it?
Yeah, I put the link in private chat. I like this little filly. I think she's good. I think she's a nice little filly, but the race came up kind of tough, but get the crown reward out of it. With Baroness.
So we got yielding. This is where you're better than me, and that's where I would acknowledge that MJ has like great tools. And I just
I need you to.
I don't use the MJ tools, but I acknowledge they're good.
No, that's fine.
And
that I dropped the claim for that trot on horse the other day and got out shooken by 3 people. I thought that horse was like kind of value there, and it's rattled off some nice finishes, but.
This is a 9 furlong right turf yielding grade 2. That horse doesn't like to win.
That horse
one does. Yeah.
A monkey ton is special.
Yeah, dude's got good horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably can't win. So I'm not going to click on it. Doesn't like to win. Really nice preferences. Might have to just look to see what this horse is. It's actually filly too. That's probably an expensive horse. And then RVA.
That horse is dog water.
Yeah. 1/3 and 6 tries. Probably pretty.
Let's acknowledge those silks first. Look at how shitty they are. Embarrass this person.
You would think that a person that
horse.
He sold one horse for more than double we've sold a single horse for.
More than I make in a fucking given calendar year, and he can't fix his silks. Disgraceful.
Yeah. Just hire a Fiverr artist or have Midjourney or whatever AI create some silks. But yeah, I agree. It's embarrassing, and I'm gonna definitely hold it against him. I don't think you're live here. Is that gonna hurt your feelings?
No, but she's put up. That's fine. No, I understand that. There's an S plus and a couple S's, but again, one of the S's is shit. But her previous races, I've run her 10, 11, 12. This is the first time shortening up a little bit. But she won a restricted stakes. Her win is a restricted stakes, and she put up a good number and beat a nice field of S minuses. And then she ran second in a grade 2 to, I think, one of Eddie's S pluses. She's a game little runner. I mean, I think she hits the board here, but I don't know that. I don't know that she beats Monkey's S plus.
Wow, these are really good fleet figures here. I mean, it is a top asset, but still. And then he'd not run. Oh, wow. Runs 4 furlongs, it gets a 47. So, and then another 4 furlong and ran 59. So he knew he didn't need to run short. It might actually prefer longer distance than this. This is really interesting, and I've noticed this on some of our horses. Excuse me. We crossed archetypes a few times breeding, meaning we took an RTF horse to an RTS horse. So the sire is an RTS. And it seems like some of those horses, this is super anecdotal and super small sample size and requires like multiple generations to even have like a real educated opinion on it. But this horse running its best fleet figure on soft when it is like a 2.5 star firm horse is not lost on me that it feels like within some bloodlines. I don't know if this has any RTS in it. No, it doesn't. So that's not a great example, but I could show you some of ours that I think if one of the bloodlines includes the other archetype, sometimes they run like sneaky good fleet figures on the wrong preference. And I know that's something that Peeb had always asked for from a game design standpoint, if they'd had like hidden alternative preferences that they were good at. But realistically, this horse is run pretty consistent other than that one, just maybe that was just the best race it had run, 77 and 11 furlongs. It's probably too long for this horse, and a horse that hasn't won in 9 tries, despite getting it in good. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where he's clearly running like the right distance. If you haven't won in 6 tries at the right distance, I'm inclined to cross you off. Let's see what we got here. This is probably a longer breakdown than you'd bargained for, but another horse that likes
I know what I get myself
brutally.
in. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Brutally long distance, another better than few breed. An S minus that goes up to an S. So preferences look great. Probably a question of whether or not it's a super great racer. I think I can cross that one off too. None of these horses have run mid distances. It's either like sprints or long distance. This isn't great either.
9 furlongs technically in the mid. It's the high mid, but 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
How they want to.
Oh my god. I don't like any of these horses. I mean, I would take all of them in our stable, but none of them have run, call it 7 to 9 furlongs with a fleet figure in like the mid 70s, which a top S or an S plus should be able to do. So I guess if I had to pick, I'll take the chalk that's won some races, but I don't feel great about it.
That's
I'm actually
crazy.
coming back to this horse.
No respect on Baroness, who has beat multiple S's in graded stakes races. Just the disrespect.
I'll pull up the S minuses quick. I was trying to get you out of here on time or whatever you thought time was. So I didn't even pull up the S minuses. They can't be ignored.
I got my time in my head. I know when to cut it off. I know what I'm about here.
We won a major with an S minus, so it's doable. You won one time. What are you talking about? This horse being great? Come on.
He's been running in stakes. What do you want me to do?
Where's your mid distance fleet?
I don't have mid. This is her first mid. That's why I'm saying.
How do you know? How do you know this isn't just an elite sprinter? Like maybe it would run like an 85 fleet figure at 4 furlongs.
Because it's not Pickens.
I'm just saying, like, throw me like a token 5. Throw me a token 5 furlong race just to cross it off.
No, come on. I haven't gotten there yet. Like that's why I said I've been running 10 plus, but like she's put up one disappointing race and it was in the allowance race, and I'm pretty sure she was carrying weight. Because there was no race to run in like 48 hours. Listen, everyone had a chance to claim Pickens.
Well, he did try. There was only 3 of us. He was the third.
It was
you would know if Yeah, if you had some respect for PJJ, you would know that he was in there in the 3.
Sorry, I don't understand. I don't know everyone's burner accounts. What do you want from me? You know?
No, that was his real account. I don't think
Was it?
there's not too many people. Yeah.
Well, maybe you should change his silks and I'll recognize him.
I think he's got decent silks.
Well,
Black and gray, I think.
The
If I
races
remember
in the graded stakes were against like big, like not big fields, but like there were S's and all this other shit in there. But yeah, I didn't know she's a Mundo baby, so she has that. There's that temper aspect, which is or lack thereof temper. But she hasn't like shown like that her temper is shit. Like she's not running dead last. If she's not hitting the board, she's 4th. And she's losing to better horses. But this race, I think there's really only 2 horses. So I think she could hit 3rd, maybe 2nd.
Yeah,
on a good day.
I've got the 2 pulled up now, and only 2. Jewel of Cleopatra, which, like I said, hasn't won. So that would make me hesitant that it can. And then Soul Invictus, which is the S+. I'd probably take the S+, but that's stupid. Like, that's where parimutuel betting is your friend. Like, if everybody bets Soul Invictus, then a little sprinkle on Jewel of Cleopatra or Jewel of Cleopatra to get 2nd is probably a pretty good bet.
This is one of those races where when there's 40 minutes left until the window closes, we come back with 5 minutes left and we don't put our wagers in. We wait to see what the odds are. Because if there's free money to be had, we'll take the free money. And anything over 2-1 on S pluses in certain races is free money. Excellent horse in it, free money.
Use it.
I don't have any horses. You gotta have horses to name. Sorry, I don't have 165 horses to name every month. You're gonna have to revert back to the baseball all-stars.
If I could outsource the horse naming, I would. We use Chat GPT pretty regularly, but I don't think it understands that you're trying to make like small puns and tie in names from both parents. We're gonna have to
just open the dictionary and just flip through and stop every once in a while.
That ruins the naming convention.
No, we get a little bit smarters, you know, a little more smarters. That's more betters. Get the brain growing.
Yeah, there is a limitless possibility there. Purple Jesus juice. That is nice.
Jesus juice. Jesus Christ.
Which is probably an alcoholic drink that I just don't even know. Maybe it is. Is it? Can you confirm or can you deny?
Oh yeah. You can probably.
I know grape drink is a thing, but
yeah, you can probably have Lacey on retainer to name your horses. Honestly, that's one thing that she was very good at. Purple drink is a beverage. Well,
that one I know.
You know purple drink. There's also purple drank, depending on what part of the country you're in. But yeah, you know it's fun sometimes. Scissor, also known as scissor, for all you boomers out there, mainly the one that's on screen with me. But yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. This was fun.
All right, thanks for coming out.
I guess go Oregon tonight.
We need Washington. Thank you very much.
Are we on Washington? I forgot.
Yes. Plus the points, but I probably would love to see them win outright. I've got some ticket features.
I found the points where it was needed, but I also have money line too. But you know, let's group ride. We can all cash and have fun. But, all right, yeah, this has been fun. Go talk about smart stuff and make sure you cut yourself off at 7:59. Don't miss the kickoff.
Oh, it'll be earlier than that. 15 minutes and we're done. So, all right, thank you, sir.
I'll take the over.
Fair. So the only other thing I had on the agenda tonight, and I hadn't prepared for it in a way that's presentable for a lot of people, but with the big sale that Vijay had, 50K plus some strings attached, because Commish will never just do a straight deal. There's always got to be strings attached to it. I think it's important to think about what are your 3-month plans, not are your 1-month plans. Because I think we're seeing some horses get used an awful lot, even at very expensive prices, like very expensive prices. But the season after that, they get used less than that. And, 2 seasons after that, they get used way less frequently. So Prime Time, which had no issues, and this is not me picking on Commish. I don't have things pulled together. We'll do Lucy Juice as well, because I think that's going to be an interesting one to look at. But Commish, this will be a shot at Commish. Me using his horses is not a shot. My commentary towards Commish is a shot. So everybody needed Prime Time. Prime Time is the perfect time of the day. Like, he told you that. Commish knows what you need before you know what you need. He also told you that. But at the end of the day, like, it pulled in 35 covers at more than $1,000 per. Was it $1,500 per? Was it $2,500 per? I don't know the numbers offhand, but the point would be that now we're 2 or 3 seasons away from that, past that, and it's got 9 out of 35 breeds. Not bad. I'd take 1.25K times 9. That's pretty good. Then the first offspring from Prime Time was Shockwave. Shockwave sold out 35, I think, in its first season too. It was priced at 1.5K like it is now. Like I said, it got 35. The next season, it might have done pretty well as well. That same season, it had done well. I think it was maybe the first season that Benedict had popped up. Let me check that on age. So Shockwave is 5. Benedict is 4. So it was a season later. So Benedict came out the same time Hot Sauce came out. So same thing as Prime Time. Shockwave, like probably like a really cool sensation that you would feel if you went to like a hip hop concert, like the Shockwave. You could feel the bass, like Commish would say, like things you need to have in your life. He knows it before you know it. But again, age 5, when it was age 3, was 35. When it was age 4, I don't know the number offhand, but now at age 5, it's hit 14 times. Again, this is not me fudding his horse. It's me fudding his rhetoric and the way that he talks. Then you go to Hot Sauce, which is the third of, call it the Primetime Trilogy, which if Commish uses in his sales rhetoric, I demand royalties for. Age 4, so age 3, this sold out 35 of 35. A season later, age 4 gets 24 of 35. Again, nothing wrong with that. 1,500 per times 24. Number good. Like number. Would like to have that ourselves. We don't have that ourselves. The moral of the story is, as you keep the same bloodline, all of these are from Prime Time, even if you're advancing the bloodline yourself, which you could argue he did with Shockwave, even if it was an S. If you're really nerdy and want like a super deep dive of, is Prime Time better than Shockwave? We covered that when we did like a deep dive of breeding reports. All of our streams are on YouTube. You can find the replay there. It's pretty dense. It was the stream that K Kirk was on maybe 2 months ago, a little less than that maybe. The TLDR was Shockwave and Primetime were basically virtually identical in stats for the most part. The difference was that Shockwave was a Gen 1 and it had bred with the other 9 of 9 S26, and Primetime is a Gen 0. So if you think there's more variance to the upside and downside with Gen 1, or if you really want to sell people on like this has a combined 10 matches, which I will never do to you, I promise you. But if you're the combined 10 match crowd, like then sure, Shockwave made some sense. So then you get to Hot Sauce, which is after that. But at the same time Hot Sauce came onto the scene, Benedict also had used Prime Time, so S Plus, basically similar preferences, same price. So now they're splitting market share. And critically, now that we're at the higher S Plus, if we use like stack rates as a proxy, if it was just a S Plus across the board, again, you'd have 6 S Plus stats across the board. So this has 2 S Pluses, but it has 2 subgrades higher than an S Plus and 2 lower. So this probably is an S plus is an S plus is an S plus. It is probably a very average S plus. That does not mean it's not a tremendous asset. It just means I don't think it's super close to being SS minus, and I don't think it's super close to being an S. I think it's between, basically at the midpoint between S and SS minus. So is there a 3-year-old that hit the barn this season? I wouldn't even know because I don't do right dirt firm. But is there something that's a meaningful improvement upon Benedict or a meaningful improvement upon Hot Sauce? Otherwise, have you used up the marketability of your stud? And in this case, I mean the marketability as in primetime, not necessarily Benedict or Hot Sauce or Shockwave. If all of these come from primetime and you no longer have the best asset, or even if you do, and let's say the best asset is Hot Sauce, even if Hot Sauce and Benedict are about the same, if you still have the best of the best from primetime, when we did that subgrade analogy, this actually is a half subgrade or one subgrade short of Benedict. But at what point do people no longer need to use Hot Sauce or Benedict because they've used it enough themselves? They've taken fillies to it that are aspiring to create the next best one of the primetime bloodline. And once you have a meaningful improvement upon Benedict and Hot Sauce, what do you have to do to your price to get however many covers you aspire to have? So next season, this horse will be 5. If he reduces the price to $80K, can he still get 24 out of 35? I don't know. People that know RDF probably know better than me. If he stays at 120, does he get 16? Does he get 12? I don't know. People that know RD know better than me. But that's the point to say that when we look at Colts going for 50K, which I don't think it was necessarily a bad deal. I think it could very well be good for both parties. I think it's highly likely, regardless of the stat reveal, that Colt is priced at 1.5K. Seems to be Kamish's number. So minimum 1.5K, maybe maximum 2K per breed. In the first season, I think, in my opinion, he's very likely to get covers from the Ted Racings of the world and maybe the 360 wins of the world. I do not know, I have not asked, but I do not know if Mr. B, which is Secretariat, which had the first S plus at RTF, and the full of She's the One, I think it's called She's the Boss. I do not know if Mr. B is going to take She's the Boss to this new S plus called Ovation. I do not know if Monkey Tennis, which is Wimbledon Turf, who, in my own opinion, has a better S plus Colt coming to the breeding barn, if not the same exact time. I'm stalling so that I know. Where did it go? Where's this Serena? Did he sell it? No way. Sorry, this, like I said, I didn't prepare any of this. And it shows. Not that one. Oh, maybe it is this horse. This is the one from Mundo then? Yeah. So this will actually hit the barn before Kamish's S plus. I thought they were the same cohort. So this will be there. He'll have pricing control in the barn to whatever he wants. He'll be the only S plus RTF Colt in the barn. It only has one of one. Serena is super rare, but that is not a one of one. And really, this PFP was only used in 2 top assets, both of which Monkey Tennis owns. So I myself am more likely to hit this than the one that Kamish bought. And I can say that having made an offer to Vijay to buy that Colt ourselves. It was not in the ballpark of Kamish's offer. That doesn't make me bitter about not getting it. It's just, I think, a true top-end RTS and on paper the best RTF filly, staying RTF because, again, 9925 here, the jockey JPEG, is not quote unquote native to RTF. So even if it uses a one of one, it doesn't use the one of ones you would associate with RTF. With RTF, you would associate that with Scuba, you would associate that with Astro. So this is an RTF, but it doesn't really use one of the two that kind of exist naturally there. So I think I would probably prefer to use this. My assumption is that Monkey Tennis will use this. So then you go to the next parties. Will we use the one from Commish or will we use the one from Monkey Tennis? I don't know. It'll likely depend upon what we get from this crop. Do we get our own S Plus Colt this time? Probably not, because our RTF pieces are shitting the bed, whether that's Goat or Diana. But do we get something that is interesting that we can use effectively internally? We already have a couple nice Colts that we can continue to use. We have nice Colts that we haven't used at all yet. So we will be sensitive to the price of these. So when you price something at $50K and you know that you will get, let's start with the high numbers. Again, instead of using Excel, we're going to use the good old calculator function. Let's say price is at 2K per, and he gets 35. Now he's already got his money back, right? That's 70K. But I just outlined that I think it's unlikely for sure that Vijay uses it. He already has. The reason Vijay sold it is because it was a very conflicted bloodline for him. He had all of those bloodlines in-house. Was it the best of those bloodlines? Sure. But I don't see him using it. I thought maybe Mr. B would use it for one or two, probably. I think Ted will use it for what he's got. I think 360 Win will use it for what he's got. So then if we go back to, and I was supposed to wrap up in 4 minutes or Doughboy's going to win his bet. But if we go back to a population-based Power BI from, again, the Gap Data guys, shout out to them. This is another one that I don't think gets used very often that I think is very good for tracking all of the horses. So what I'll put in here, I feel like you always have to hit refresh to get them to load, but that's not the Gap Data guy's fault. That's probably Power BI. I'll get back to these comments in chat too, even if it makes me late for my self-imposed deadline. So if I'm trying to figure out who's going to use these Colts, I very much am saying let's do 2-year-old because these can breed next season. Realistically, you could probably include 1-year-old if you want to talk about the Commish one. And you would use Philly. And I'm going to use right turf. Now, again, Commish knows what you need before you know what you need. And my guess is he'll suggest that it is a very good right dirt firm breeding piece as well. I don't agree. That's my own opinion. His opinion is valid as well. But if I'm saying that I think age 1 to 9, Philly, right turf is probably your population. That's maybe bankable if you want to use something like that terminology. I would say, what does 360 Win have? He's got 12 total, but he's probably not using that with an A, probably not even an A plus. So at the S minus level, he's got 3. Is he going to use all of those there? Could he use all of those there? I don't know. But if I was Commish, these are the things I would be looking for. And if you were going to consider a true top tier Colt yourself, these are the things I would have run all of these things. I didn't, even though we made an offer to buy it, because if we would have bought it, we could have used it 35 times ourselves. Selling externally wasn't even really part of the calculus. And then the other one I thought for sure would use it, and I think will for sure use it, is Tad. GVG is another possibility. Now, I don't think GVG plans to use that. And I hope I didn't spoil some sort of trade secret that I'm not supposed to talk about, but I think it's unlikely that he's going to use it. So then you've got 11, and Ted likes to use the money that he has at his disposal, so it's probably likely that Ted takes the 11 to what he thinks is the best Colt. Now, does he think the best Colt is the one from Serena Star, or does he think the best one is Ovation? I don't know. If people have got contacts with Ted, I'd love to actually ask him even if he speaks French, what his answer to that question is. So where I got reservations about a real high number for this colt, a number that the colt ultimately went for, was, other than us using it, who else is going to use it and how often are they going to need to use it? My assumption is that if someone has used the sire one time per filly, they likely don't need to go back to it. Maybe they got a filly and they wanted a colt. Maybe they got a colt and they wanted a filly. Then they go back again. But as we outlined with that progression from Prime Time to Shockwave to Hot Sauce or Benedict, it seems like you are getting a natural tailing off of the usage of colts, particularly ones priced high, even if they are the best in class. If you've hit it once with a filly, you got the outcome you wanted, or you got an outcome that was livable, you're less likely to reuse it. I think that reigns true. So when you're trying to figure out what these colts are worth at the top end, you can't simply say, I could sell out 35 every season until eternity. Even if we stall out at the S plus level, which I think we will, we did in all of the betas. Like, yes, we'll get to SS minus somewhat quicker than we did in betas, in my opinion. And yes, it will be at Right Dirt Firm. No, that doesn't mean Primetime is God's gift to the earth. There's the most S's at RDF. You had 2 unique S's at RDF. It's very likely that RDF gives us the best one, the earliest one. And if we stall out at S plus elsewhere, like RTF, it's possible that these colts that we're talking about, the one from Serena Star's offspring and Mundo, the one that Vijay sold named Ovation, now maybe they are the best S plus colts for like 6 seasons on paper. Even if that's true, you can't rely on repeat customers for 6 straight seasons. So you would have to apply some sort of decay or attrition to what your target market is. And that's where I would tell people that are considering buys like this, which again is probably jokes on me. There's probably not a lot of people that are considering a horse at 50,000, but you could take the same analogy and work down. If you can't use it yourself effectively, who else is going to use it? If they use it, even if you're right, how often are they going to use it? Once they're done using it, who comes next in line that may potentially use it? So I think it was a great deal for the game, good deal for Kamish. He'll use it a couple times internally. I left those out. I wasn't trying to conveniently exclude them. He's got RTS Diva, which is an S he'll use with it probably in perpetuity because he knows what you need before you know what you need. He's got Sapima, which is an LTS S minus filly from non 1 of 1. As much as he's experimenting, I suspect he'll use that as well. So he's going to get some internal use out of it, and that needs to be considered when you consider the cost of your asset. If I buy something for $50K and I price it for $2K, I use it for 20% of that price. So I would almost have to look at that as a cost savings. If the JJ owned it, it cost me $2K. If I own it, it costs me what, $400 is the math on that? Someone could correct me. I'm accountant by trade, CPA by trade, but math is not my forte. So if I'm saving quote unquote $1,600 per breed, it's not money back in your pocket, but it's money not leaving your pocket. So there's a value associated with that as well. Let me get caught up on chat. Yes, PJJ branding. I know this was a while ago, and I know this might be in respect to alcoholic drinks, but branding certainly seems to be the name of the game. And then Trailblazer, who, I don't know, I get tired of losing to Trailblazer. He doesn't have 1,000 horses like us, I don't think, but it seems like he's got all the good ones all the time. And I agree. I think the one from Serena Star and Mundo is almost assuredly going to reveal better. The one that Kamish bought has no 1 of 1s in it, not even the 9925. But at the end of the day, it's an S minus plus an S, making an S plus. And from what we've seen so far in live, one, yes, it's definitely possible, but two, they tend to not be the strongest racers, which tends to also mean their individual stack grades are on the lower end of the S plus, where I said Benedict and Hot Sauce are probably truly at the midpoint between S and SS minus. My suspicion would be that Ovation is much closer to an S than it would be an S plus. And the Serena full, because it came from a 101, which was called an S20 or S19 in Gen 0 terms, and Serena, which was an S19.5. If we think in old terms, again, these metrics aren't used as much as they were, they're not as important as they used to be. But if we thought an S27 would have made you an S plus by definition, the top was S26. If you're taking an S19 and an S19.5, to me, that's a lot closer than taking an S minus and an S, both of which were red. So could it have wicked crazy everywhere? I suppose it's a possibility. I try to make as an informed decision as I can possibly based on the precedent we've seen exist so far. So that was a little bit out of my comfort zone on the price, but I do hope it works out well for both, because if it works out well for both, chances are we'll see more big and maybe even more better deals for all involved. What do I think of Spongeworthy? I personally think it's gonna bank because RT is pretty weak overall. You're gonna hate me. I recognize the horse name. I think it's an RTS, but I don't know the RTS horses as well as I should. And I race like 60% or 80% races, just praying to God I can get yielding, because I know like good never happens to people like me in PFL and otherwise. But I think I know this horse. Yeah, RTS S plus from Walter, which is native to RTS. It's a 9924, which doesn't exist naturally at RTF. Obviously, it does at RTS. And then Smoopy, which is an Astro RTF. So you're using two one-of-ones, but you're using one from RTF, which Astro doesn't really exist at RTS. And then you're using 9924 ticket window, which doesn't really exist at RTF. So you're using two. You could make an argument to me that you're using one if your goal is an RTS and one if your goal is RTF. It's certainly got a great race record. A lot of the Gen 0 stuff that raced for like 8 years, you would have to throw out great race records. This isn't the case here. This horse had always raced against super tough horses. Yeah, I think it's likely that this horse is going to crush in the breeding barn. I'm a little surprised, personally, that it wasn't retired, to maybe find out, and maybe that's because there's two one-of-ones. Like I said, I would consider this one-of-one if I'm trying to get an RTS, one-of-one if I'm trying to get an RTF, and therefore it's actually a pretty good asset. I would consider this maybe a touch below the Serena one, because even if I'm getting cute and saying this is one-of-one from each archetype, the Serena one at the end of the day is one-of-one period. And it's not a one-of-one from RTF. And if I'm trying to breed RTF, like that just makes more sense. But I'll pay attention to where this one prices and how much it gets used for sure. Yeah, he said because the new races, he was going to do one more season for sure. Maybe we got rated by something. That's curious. I hate to disappoint, but God, we probably did. But I'm going to be ending in like the next 2 to 3 minutes here. But yeah, we'll call it there. I'm curious to see where this one comes out. Again, maybe the biggest point of the night wasn't all the not even subtle cheap shots towards Kamish's rhetoric, but the racing meta is going to change by definition. Right now, you have 4.2 million crown per season going to a smaller number of horses than you will have a lesser number of crown going to a greater number of horses. So that maybe makes sense why Spongeworthy said, like, this is the last great season of racing. For now, doesn't mean there can't be great racing going ahead, whether that's partnerships or marketing. Another fundraise could have marketing tie-ins. It could have a betting partner. There are many ways that this can truly explode, even from where it is now. But if you have to look at bankable metrics and things that you can actually truly count on without any surprise to the good, I think people need to be considering how they're going to race to hit the board, again, hit the podium, first, second, or third, as early as next season, and that should factor into your purchasing decisions. Maybe you claim a 2-year-old horse now that's going to be 3 next season, but is that as great as a 3-year-old horse now? Even though it's older, normally you would consider a 3-year-old horse now less desirable than a 2. It's got less of its racing career ahead of it. But if this is the best season, being a mature horse in this best season might make sense for everybody. Poker player, better late than never. I missed a stream, had steak and lager and went outside. Crazy, huh? I didn't have steak. I am enjoying a lager, and I'm about to go watch what I hope to be a great football game. And in a perfect world, we get I missed that. Sorry, Trailblazer. In a perfect world, we get a Washington win. It's the most weird thing ever. But one, you don't have legal sports betting in the state of Minnesota, which makes you go to extremes to sports bet, whether I mean extremes of like driving to Iowa, which no one should ever want to do, driving to Wisconsin, very similar, or you do stupid stuff. So like there's actually ticket options is what I would call them. You buy the right to buy face value national championship tickets for a given team. So I bought these options for Washington. If Washington makes the national championship, I can buy 6 lower level face value tickets. What it cost me was this option that I'm talking about, which is literally worthless if Washington loses, and they're 10-point underdogs. So they're probably going to lose. But if they win, because it's an option, I can actually sell this option before the national championship. I could sell it before the playoff. So I'd probably sell 2 as a hedge if they won tonight. That would be great. It'd be lovely. But I'm not expecting it. And I apologize to everybody that just joined. I do love the additional viewer count. I do love the additional interest. What I will say is I will quickly drop our YouTube channel, which has all our replays, and we'll have this replay like literally 30 seconds after I stop streaming. So if you're interested in Photo Finish Live and you like nerdy shit, I'm kind of one of the nerdier guys that you'll come across. So there's the link. I do think there's some good content there. If you have any questions about what's there or otherwise, or there's topics you would like us to cover on stream, hit us up at Twitter. Hit us up in the PFL Discord at abominable_snowman. Hit me up personally on Discord, Stens31. So again, go Washington Huskies. Thanks everybody for joining. Have a great night.